Chapter 31. Silence After the Storm. The silence that followed the battle felt unnatural, like a world stripped bare of its heartbeat. The forest, once alive with whispers, creaks, and the hum of unseen creatures, had fallen utterly still. Smoke drifted between the trees in thin veils, curling and fading into the night like the last breaths of something ancient. My ears rang with the echoes of the fight, and in that ringing silence, I became aware of one thing: Ethan's stillness. I sat on the ground beside him, my body bruised, my clothes torn, but none of it mattered. His head rested in my lap, his face pale, his lips streaked with blood. My fingers trembled violently as I brushed the damp hair from his forehead. His skin was warm, but I could feel it slipping, like holding onto fire as it burned down to embers. "Ethan," I whispered, shaking him gently. "Stay with me, please." His eyelids fluttered, heavy as though the act of opening them was its battle. His breath rattled, shallow, uneven. When his gaze found mine, I saw it there, the exhaustion, the weight of centuries, but also peace. A quiet peace, as if for the first time in his cursed existence, he wasn't fighting anymore. "You did it," I breathed, my tears spilling onto his cheek. "You broke it." His lips curved faintly, the ghost of a smile. "Not me," he rasped. "Us, you were the light when everything else was dark." The words cut through me sharper than any blade. My throat ached as I bent closer, holding his face between my hands. "Don't talk like that. You're not leaving me. Do you hear me? You're not." His chest rose weakly under my palm, then fell. For a terrifying second it didn't rise again, and I nearly screamed. But then, barely, he pulled in a breath, and with it, his eyes flicked back to mine. "I'm here," he whispered, his voice hoarse and thin. "I found you this time, and I'm not letting go." The dam inside me broke. I pressed my forehead to his, sobbing, my tears mixing with the dirt and blood on his skin. "Then fight for me, just a little longer. Please, Ethan, stay." A long silence stretched between us. Only the crackling of the shattered altar behind us filled the air, stone fragments breaking apart into dust as the red glow bled from them. Around us, the forest seemed to watch. The trees bent ever so slightly, their branches bowing, as if bearing witness. Then something strange happened. The wind shifted. Soft at first, carrying with it the faint scent of ash and earth. One by one, the crimson leaves that had clung stubbornly to the trees began to fall, drifting slowly like drops of blood turned weightless. They floated down around us, blanketing the ground in red. Some clung to Ethan's chest, others tangled in his hair. It looked like the forest was burying him, like nature itself mourned. I couldn't stop the tears now. My hand smoothed across his jaw, feeling the faint scrape of stubble, memorizing him in case this was the last time. "I can't lose you. Not when I just found you. Not like this." His hand lifted weakly, trembling as it brushed against my wrist. "You won't," he said, though his voice cracked with the effort. His eyes closed for a moment, then flickered open again as though sheer willpower anchored him here. "The curse, it's breaking. I can feel it." I swallowed hard, searching his face. "Then hold on until it's gone, until it's completely gone." He managed a faint chuckle that broke into a cough. Blood stained his lips, but he still smiled faintly. "Always so stubborn even now." "And you love that about me," I shot back, choking on the words, desperate to keep him talking, to keep him awake. His eyes softened. "I do, more than you'll ever know." The forest shifted again, subtle, but I felt it. The ground beneath us stopped trembling. The smoke thinned. The whispering that had haunted the woods since the day I stepped foot inside them was gone, truly gone. All that remained was silence, deep and reverent, as though the forest itself was bowing in acknowledgement. But the silence wasn't empty. It was waiting, watching. I knew, deep in my bones, that something had ended here. The cycle of blood and curse that had haunted Ethan, that had fed Elias, had been cut through at last. The forest hadn't claimed Ethan the way it had claimed others. It had stopped. And that could only mean one thing. It was waiting for me to decide what came next. My hands tightened on Ethan's face, my heart pounding like a drum against my ribs. "You're not going anywhere," I said fiercely, more to the forest than to him. "Do you hear me? You've taken enough. You've had your blood, your sacrifice, your screams, but you don't get him, not this time. The wind rustled through the trees, low and mournful, but it didn't push back. It didn't take him. The crimson leaves kept falling, steady as rain. Ethan exhaled, his breath shaky but present. His hand slid weakly from my wrist to my chest, resting over my heartbeat. "You're stronger than me," he murmured, eyes heavy-lidded. I shook my head furiously. "No, we're strong together, always together." For the first time since the fight, a sliver of hope pushed through the crushing fear. He wasn't gone. Not yet. His voice, faint as it was, still tethered me to him. And I knew in that quiet, smoke-stained clearing that even if the curse was broken, our story was. Not yet. I leaned down, pressing my lips to his forehead, closing my eyes as the world around us held its breath. "Rest, just rest. I'll keep you safe this time." The forest bent lower, shadows stretching long, as if listening, as if bowing in agreement. And with Ethan's faint pulse beating beneath my fingertips, I realized that though the battle had ended, the war for his life had only just begun. Chapter 32. The Seed Beneath the Ash. I carried Ethan back to the house, if it could still be called that. The fire had devoured so much, leaving the walls charred black and the roof broken open to the sky. Ash drifted like snow in the morning light, clinging to my clothes, my skin, his still body. Each step was heavier than the last, not just from his weight but from the truth pressing against my ribs. He was slipping farther and farther away, and I had nothing left to hold him with. The downstairs had been spared from the worst of the flames, though the scent of smoke still stung my eyes and throat. The floorboards creaked under us as I lowered Ethan gently onto the couch where Gran used to nap on quiet afternoons. My hands lingered on him longer than they should have, brushing his hair, adjusting his shirt, anything to keep from admitting how fragile he'd become. His breaths were shallow, barely stirring the air. I searched what remained of the house for something, anything. Water, herbs, and one of Gran's jars of salve. Most of it was gone, melted glass and warped metal. But when I reached her old room, I found a floorboard that hadn't burned. I remembered how she used to sit by her bed for hours, knitting or writing letters, always resting her feet on that same spot. I pressed my fingers against the wood and it shifted. My heart caught. With a sharp pull, I lifted the plank free, revealing a hollow beneath. Inside was a single object, a smooth, round stone etched with the sigil I'd seen on the altar. The lines carved into it glowed faintly, pulsing like the ember of a dying fire. When I touched it, warmth rushed up my arm, and then his voice. "Ray." I froze. It was Ethan, weak, distant, but him. "Ray, there's more," he whispered, his tone urgent, trembling as though carried through layers of earth and memory. "You have to finish it." Tears blurred my vision, spilling onto the stone. "Ethan, I'm here, just hold on, please, don't fade from me." But his voice was already dissolving, leaving only a faint echo inside my chest. The silence after it was unbearable. I clutched the stone to my heart. My mind reeled. The forest hadn't been only a curse, it was a cycle. A story written into bloodlines and roots, stretching back through Marietta, through Elias, through Gran. And now me. The truth of it pressed against me like a burden too heavy to carry, but one I could never set down. I couldn't stay in the ruins of the house. The walls seemed to whisper, urging me to move before the forest decided otherwise. Wrapping the stone in cloth, I set out for town. The church sat at the edge of the square, its white paint flaking, its bell long rusted. Inside, the air smelled of candle wax and old paper. The priestess, an elderly woman with silver hair braided down her back, looked up from her desk as I entered. Her eyes fell immediately to the bundle in my hand. "What have you brought me?" she asked, her voice both cautious and reverent. I unwrapped the cloth and placed the stone on the table. The moment her fingers brushed the carved surface, her breath hitched. This is no ordinary relic," she whispered, her eyes widening. "Do you know what you've found?" I shook my head. All I know is it spoke to me. Ethan's voice, he's inside it somehow. She studied me for a long moment before saying, "This is a binding stone. They are rare, dangerous, used by witches long ago to hold memory inside the land itself. Once created, they cannot be destroyed without unraveling what was bound within. My pulse quickened. Can it bring someone back? The priestess's gaze hardened. She did not answer right away. Instead, she lifted the stone close to her ear as though listening to it breathe. Her lips moved in a prayer I couldn't hear. Finally, she set it down and looked at me with eyes as sharp as glass. Only if they're still listening. The room seemed to tilt. My breath came shallow. I leaned closer. He is listening. I heard him. He called my name. Doesn't that mean he's still here? The priestess's lips pressed into a thin line. It means his spirit hasn't yet let go. But be warned, child. Binding stones do not give without taking. To draw someone back from their memory, something else must be offered. Offered, my voice cracked. What do you mean? Her eyes dropped to the ash clinging to my hands, to the tremor in my fingers. The forest always demands balance. If you wish to pull him fully back, you must decide what you are willing to surrender. I stared at the stone, its faint light pulsing as though in rhythm with my heartbeat. Ethan's voice still echoed in me, weak, fleeting, but alive. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that whatever came next would not only decide his fate, it would decide mine. Chapter 33. The Voice in the Hollow. The path to the altar site no longer resisted me. Where once the trees had closed ranks and shadows had grown teeth, now they bent in silent deference, their branches arching above like guardians bowing to a queen they had long been waiting for. The forest recognized me, accepted me, claimed me. Barefoot, I moved across the earth, each step a whisper of connection between skin and soil. In one hand, the binding stone pulsed faintly with a crimson glow, warm and alive like a heartbeat. On the other hand, Ethan's locket glimmered faintly in the fading light. I carried both as if they were extensions of myself, two halves of the same story, waiting to be joined. When the hollow came into view, my chest tightened. The altar was gone, crumbled into dust as though centuries had collapsed in a single breath. But beneath the ruin, the roots still glowed faintly, threads of red light winding through the earth like veins beneath skin. The hollow itself throbbed gently, a heart buried but not silenced. I stood over it, the silence of the forest pressing down on me like a held breath. My throat trembled as I whispered his name. Once, twice, each syllable lingered in the air, absorbed by the waiting earth. Then, with hands shaking, I opened the locket and pressed it against the stone. The forest exhaled. A low hum rippled outward, vibrating through my bones, stirring the branches until leaves began to rise into the air. They swirled upward in spirals, defying gravity, like smoke rewinding its path into the fire. Time itself seemed to hesitate. And then, faint, cracked, but unmistakably real, his voice broke through. Ray. The sound shattered me. Not an echo, not a memory, him, Ethan. I fell to my knees, pressing my palm to the pulsing soil as tears blurred my vision. I'm here, I whispered, my voice breaking. I never stopped being here. I never stopped waiting for you. A surge of energy struck me like lightning, rushing from the ground into my chest. My breath caught as images poured into my mind. The warmth of his lips in our first kiss at the cafe, the gentle creak of Gran's porch swing where we dreamed beneath the stars, our childhood laughter carried on summer winds. Each memory struck like a hammer, breaking something inside me open. And then the vision shifted. I saw him, not as a ghost or a fragment of the past, but standing beneath the great tree. Ethan. His chest was rising and falling. His eyes were alive, burning with recognition. My hand reached out, desperate, trembling. I could almost feel his warmth. Almost. And then the forest blinked. The light dimmed. The air fractured. Reality folded like a page being turned. And he was either about to be mine, or lost forever. Chapter 34. A Deal with the Wild. The voice that answered me did not belong to Ethan. It carried no warmth, no familiar edge of boyish charm that once made me laugh even in my darkest days. This voice was older, ancient, forged in the marrow of the roots themselves. It rolled through the hollow like thunder with no sky, heavy and cold, the sound of time remembering itself. You want him back. The words slithered through the air, not a question but a judgment. I felt them in my bones, rattling against every secret I had tried to bury. My throat tightened, but I didn't speak. My silence carried the weight of truth more than words ever could. The forest stirred, as if waiting. A chorus of unseen branches whispered, testing me, probing my resolve. Then the voice came again, deeper, vibrating from the earth beneath my bare feet. You know the cost. My chest constricted. I had known all along. From the moment I touched the binding stone, from the instant Ethan's voice threaded itself back through the hollow, I had felt the inevitability. Still, hearing it aloud pressed a blade against my heart. I exhaled, steady, refusing to tremble. I do, I whispered. My voice wavered only once. Take me, let him live. The forest recoiled, as if insulted. Branches snapped, leaves rained down in a shiver of refusal. The ground quaked faintly, sending ripples through the pool of faint light at my feet. Too simple, the voice thundered, dark and sharp as cracking ice. Too mortal, this is not love, this is desperation. Anger flared hot inside me, burning away the tremor of fear. My fists clenched, nails digging crescents into my palms. I forced myself to stand taller, to face the emptiness in front of me as though I stared down a god itself. No, I said, my voice low but unshakable. This is love refusing to die. The hollow stilled. For a heartbeat, I thought the forest had rejected me outright. Then the roots beneath me began to writhe, splitting the soil like serpents uncoiling from centuries of sleep. At their center, the ground tore open, revealing a pool that glowed with crimson light, swirling like blood caught in eternal motion. Its glow painted my skin in shades of sacrifice. The voice was silent now, but I didn't hesitate. I stepped forward, the binding stone clutched in one hand, Ethan's locket in the other. My pulse matched the thrum of the light, each beat louder than the last. Bind us, I whispered, the words a vow and a plea all at once. If I must carry this forest with me, if I must be its memory, its shadow, its vessel, then so be it. But give him life, real life, not memory, not illusion, him. The air thickened, pressing down on me like a storm refusing to break. The silence stretched until it felt unbearable, until my knees threatened to give. My breath caught in my throat. And then, accepted. The word echoed like a verdict, sealing itself into the marrow of the earth, into the marrow of me. Chapter 35, A New Bloom. When I woke, I wasn't in the hollow anymore. I wasn't pressed against the roots or swallowed by shadows. I was lying on Gran's porch swing, the old wooden frame creaking gently beneath me as though it had rocked me there all night. The smell of pine and honey drifted in the morning air, carried by a breeze that was no longer sharp with warning but soft with promise. My chest rose with a deep, steady breath, the first in what felt like years. I turned my head, and there he was, Ethan, sitting beside me, his posture still and reverent, as though he feared moving might shatter whatever miracle had been given. His eyes, those endless dark oceans, were wide and brimming with disbelief, his lips parted like he had just remembered how to breathe. He looked both familiar and brand new, like the boy I'd known and the man I'd fought for had been woven into one being. My hand trembled as I reached out. I half expected him to blur, to dissolve like mist, like he always had when I dreamed him back. But this time he didn't vanish. My fingers closed around his, and what I felt was real warmth, pulse, life. His skin against mine was solid, grounding, and undeniable. He was here, truly here. "You came back," he whispered, his voice breaking with awe. Tears stung my eyes, sliding down my cheeks unchecked. I shook my head. "You never left." His breath hitched, and he pulled me closer, our foreheads nearly touching. For a long, fragile moment, neither of us spoke. The silence didn't demand words. It only asked us to remember, to feel, to believe that we had both survived. When I finally glanced beyond him, I noticed the change. The forest no longer carried the weight of crimson sorrow. The leaves, once stained blood red, had shifted into hues of gold, amber, and green. The wind whispered, not with mourning, but with peace, like a hymn sung for the living. Where the altar had once stood, where centuries of bindings and sacrifices had been demanded, a sapling now grew, small, fragile, but alive. Its tender leaves shimmered with light, bending gently as though bowing to us, the ones who had paid the price for its bloom. We walked into town that afternoon, our hands clasped as if welded together. The people we passed looked at us with wide eyes, some with curiosity, some with awe, and others with quiet recognition, as though they too could sense that something in the air had shifted. No one spoke, but heads turned, breaths hitched, and a hush followed us through the streets like a reverent echo. Later, when the sky deepened into violet and stars scattered themselves above us, Ethan and I stood in the backyard beneath Gran's tree. The old oak stretched its arms high, its bark grooved with decades of memory, yet something about it felt different, renewed, watching. Ethan placed his hand against the trunk, his palm pressing gently, his fingers tracing the rough ridges like he was reading a language only the two of them understood. "It remembers," he murmured, his lips curling into the faintest, most tender smile. I swallowed, my heart swelling with an ache that was equal parts sorrow and joy. I nodded, my hand tightening around his. "So do we." The night wrapped around us, soft and unthreatening, and for the first time since the leaves had turned red, I believed in something new. Not just survival, not just memory, but growth, a new bloom.